She says I need to leave or she'll call the police. I look at her and say, go ahead. I'll save you the trouble and report stolen property myself. Her expression shifts. She says, the phone isn't stolen. It's confiscated. Per policy. I say, you're holding my property. After I repeatedly asked for it back. That it's theft. She stares at me for 10 seconds. Then says, fine. Follow me. We go to Mr. Howard's office. He's got the phone in a plastic bag with Olivia's name on it. In his desk drawer. But before handing it over, Mrs. Callahan closes the door and says, they need to discuss something first. My stomach drops. She tells me when they took the phone. It was unlocked. A notification came through from a teacher, Mr. Brennan, who teaches junior English. The message said, delete our conversation before your mom sees. I just stare. She explains they've been trying to figure out how to handle this, which is why they wanted to keep the phone. To investigate. But they hadn't told me yet. Because they weren't sure what they were dealing with. I'm furious. I say, so you were going to keep my daughter's phone for 2 weeks, dig through her messages and not tell me a teacher is texting her? Mrs. Callahan starts backtracking, saying they were being cautious, didn't want false accusations. I say, give me the phone now. Mr. Howard hands it over. I open it right there and find the messages. Most are deleted, but one from a week ago says, you look nice today and let me know if you need help with anything, even outside class. I feel sick. I tell Mrs. Callahan I'm calling the police. She says they'll handle it internally. I actually laugh. I say, you were going to sit on this for 2 weeks without telling me, and now I should trust you? I'm already dialing.
Co arrive 30 minutes laté.
I show them everything. They take statements and pull Mr. Brennan out of class. He's on leave by the next day. A week later, they find more messages on his school computer, sent to 2 other students. He gets arrested. I kept Olivia's phone as evidence until the investigation finished. When I gave it back, we had a completely different conversation than I'd planned. He admitted he made her uncomfortable, but didn't know how to tell me. She thought she'd be in trouble. The school changed their confiscation policy within a month. Parents can now pick up phones. Same day, Mrs. Callahan took early retirement. Before the semester ended. Part 1. The silence in the hallways. The police lights had long since faded from the driveway, but the red and blue strobe seemed burned into my retinas. The house was quiet. Not the peaceful silence of a sleeping suburb, but the heavy, suffocating silence of a held breath. Olivia was in her room. She hadn't come out for dinner. I sat at the kitchen island, staring at her phone. It was unlocked now, lying on the granite counter like an unexploded ordnance. I hadn't looked through it again. I didn't need to. The police had mirrored the drive, and the detective, a sharp-eyed woman named Miller, had seen enough to warrant the arrest. But the image of Mr. Brennan, Jason, as he asked the kids to call him, being let out of the school in handcuffs was looping in my mind. The local news hadn't named Olivia, thankfully. They referred to her as Student A. But in a town this size, anonymity was a myth. My phone buzzed. Another text from a number I didn't recognize. Is it true? Did you really have Mr. Brennan arrested? He's the best teacher there. You're ruining a good man's life over a misunderstanding. I blocked the number. It was the 5th one tonight. I walked to Olivia's door and knocked softly. Leave. No answer. I'm coming in. She was sitting on her bed, knees pulled to her chest, staring at the wall. She looked younger than 16. Smaller. I hate you, she whispered. The words didn't sting. They landed with a dull thud. I know, I said, sitting on the edge of the bed. I know you're angry. You think I blew up your world. Everyone is texting me, she said, her voice cracking. They're saying I let him on. They're saying I'm a snitch. They're wrong. He said. She choked on a sob. He said I was mature for my age. He said he was the only one who understood how much pressure I was under. He said if I told you, you'd go crazy and pull me out of school and ruin everything. She looked at me, eyes red and swollen. And he was right. You did. He manipulated you, Olivia. That's what predators do. They isolate you. They make you trust them and fear everyone else. He didn't touch me, she screamed, the defense mechanism kicking in. He didn't get the chance. I said, my voice dropping to a low, steel register. And I wasn't going to wait until he did. Mrs. Callahan's retirement party was cancelled, obviously. She slipped out the back door of the administration building 2 days after the arrest, cleaning out her desk under the supervision of the school board attorney. But I wasn't done with Mrs. Callahan. 2 weeks later, the initial fervor had died down, replaced by the slow, grinding gears of the legal system. Brennan was out on bail. The school board was in damage control mode, issuing bland statements about safety and new protocols. I tracked Callahan down. She lived in a manicured subdivision on the north side of town. I didn't call. I just drove over. She opened the door, looking 10 years older than she had in Mr. Howard's office. She wore a tracksuit and held a watering can. When she saw me, she didn't try to close the door. She just sighed. What do you want? I'm not an employee anymore. You said something in that office, I said, stepping onto her porch. You said you wanted to keep the phone to investigate. You said you didn't want false accusations. Standard procedure, she mumbled, avoiding my eyes. Bullshit, I said. You saw the text. Delete our conversation. That's not ambiguous. That's evidence of a cover-up. And you sat on it. You were going to let him teach for 2 more weeks while you thought about it. It's complicated, she snapped. Jason Brennan brought in the highest AP scores in the district. Parents loved him. If I accused him and I was wrong. You prioritized your test scores over my daughter's safety. Callahan set the watering can down. Look, you got what you wanted. He's fired. I'm gone. Leave it alone. I want to know why, I pressed. Why were you so ready to bury it? Because it felt practiced, Mrs. Callahan. It felt like you'd done it before. Her face went pale. It was a subtle shift, a tightening of the jaw, but I caught it. Get off my property, she said, her voice trembling. Or I'll call the police. Go ahead. I smiled, echoing the words I'd said in the school office. I have a great relationship with them these days. She slammed the door. I walked back to my car, my heart hammering. She was hiding something. This wasn't just negligence. It was a pattern. Part 2, the pattern. The detective, Miller, called me in on a Tuesday. We found the other 2, she said. She looked tired. Piles of manila folders cluttered her desk. The ones Brennan was messaging on his school laptop. Are they okay? Physically? Yes. Emotionally? It's a mess. One is a senior, 18 now. The other is a sophomore. But here's the kicker. Miller spun a laptop around to face me. We did a forensic recovery on his hard drive. We found drafts of emails. Deleted ones. I leaned in. The timestamp was 3 years ago. The email was addressed to principal_Callahan at schooldistrict.edu. Subject: regarding the rumors. Body: Margaret, I assure you the rumors regarding Emily T. are unfounded. I was simply tutoring her after hours. I will ensure the door is open next time. Thank you for handling the parent concern so discreetly. I felt the blood drain from my face. Emily T. Emily Turner, Miller said. She graduated 2 years ago. Moved out of state. Callahan knew, I whispered. She knew 3 years ago. A parent complained. And she let him talk his way out of it. We can't prove she saw the texts, Miller warned. This email just proves there was a complaint. It proves she lied to me, I said. She acted like this was the first time. She knew exactly what he was. 6 months passed. The snow melted, giving way to a humid spring. The criminal trial was pending, but the civil suit I'd filed against the school district was moving faster. I sat in a conference room with my lawyer, a shark named David Rosen who smelled of expensive cologne and aggression. Across the table sat Mr. Howard, the vice principal, and the school district's legal team. They looked bored. To them, this was just numbers. Settlement figures. My client acted in accordance with district policy at the time. The school's lawyer droned. The confiscation of the phone was lawful. The confiscation isn't the issue, Rosen cut in. It's the obstruction of justice. It's the fact that Mr. Howard here held evidence of grooming in a Ziploc bag and tried to negotiate a quiet resolution instead of calling CPS. Howard shifted in his seat. I was following Mrs. Callahan's lead. Mr. Howard, I spoke up. Rosen shot me a look, but I ignored it. When you took that phone, did you read the message? I glanced at it. Did you think it was appropriate for a 35-year-old man to tell a 16-year-old girl to delete their conversation? I thought it looked suspicious, Howard admitted, sweat beading on his forehead. That's why we kept the phone. No, I said, leaning forward. You kept the phone to see if you could bury it. You were checking to see how bad the damage was. If it was just flirty, you were going to slap his wrist. You were gambling with my daughter. We are prepared to offer a settlement of $50,000, the lawyer interrupted, closing his folder, with a non-disclosure agreement regarding the administrative handling of the case. No, I said. Excuse me. No money, I said. And no NDA. I want an admission of negligence. I want the policy on teacher-student communications rewritten and enforced by a third party. And I want Mrs. Callahan's pension reviewed. That's impossible, the lawyer scoffed. Then we go to court, I said, standing up. And I'll put every single one of you on the stand and ask you why protecting a predator was more important than protecting a child. Olivia was getting better, but it was slow. We had found a therapist she liked, a woman who didn't treat her like a broken doll. One evening, I found Olivia in the kitchen making tea. Mom. Yeah, honey. I remember something else, she said. She wasn't looking at me. About Mr. Brennan. I froze. Okay. He used to brag about it. Not directly. But he'd say things like, Mrs. Callahan and I go way back. She knows I'm indispensable. He felt safe. Like he knew he couldn't get touched. He was wrong. I ran into Emily Turner's mom at the grocery store, Olivia said. My heart stopped. You did? Yeah, she said. She said sorry. She said her mom didn't believe her back then. Callahan told them Emily was looking for attention. They made Emily apologize to Brennan. The rage that flared in my chest was white hot. They had gaslit a child to protect a predator. Olivia, I said, turning to her. I need you to know something. You saved the next girl. If you hadn't given me that phone, even if you didn't want to, this would still be happening. I didn't give it to you, she reminded me with a small, sad smile. You stole it back. Confiscated it. I corrected, matching her smile. Per policy. She actually laughed. It was the first time I'd heard her laugh in months. Part 3, the The reckoning. The criminal trial began in the fall. The courtroom was packed. The media had latched onto the story, painting Brennan as a fallen star or a monster, depending on the outlet. Brennan's defense was predictable. He claimed he was a mentor. He claimed the messages were taken out of context. He claimed the girls had crushes on him, and he was trying to let them down gently without embarrassing them. Then came the texts. Prosecutor Miller projected them onto the screen. You're too smart for the boys in your grade. They don't get you like I do. Don't wear that sweater again unless you want me to lose focus. Just us. No one needs to know. The jury looked uncomfortable. Brennan looked arrogant. But the turning point wasn't the texts. It was the character witnesses. The defense called a former student, a young man who sang Brennan's praises. Then, on cross-examination, Miller asked one question. Did Mr. Brennan ever ask you to delete messages? The young man hesitated. Once. He said it was because he used a curse word and didn't want to get in trouble. So he had a habit of hiding communications? I guess. When it was time for the prosecution's closing, I didn't look at Brennan. I looked at Olivia, sitting in the back row. She had chosen to come. She wanted to see him small. And he was small. Stripped of his classroom, his authority, and his tenure, he was just a pathetic man in a cheap suit. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on 3 counts of dissemination of harmful matter to a minor and 2 counts of stalking. It wasn't the life sentence some wanted, but he would be a registered sex offender for the rest of his life. He would never teach again. Brennan was gone, but the school district was still fighting me. They refused to admit systemic negligence. I needed the smoking gun. I needed proof that Callahan had buried Emily Turner's complaint. I went back to the source. Mr. Howard. He was still the vice principal, though he looked like a ghost of himself. I caught him in the parking lot after a board meeting. Mr. Howard. He flinched. I have nothing to say to you. You have a daughter, don't you, John? I asked. Sarah? She's in middle school. He stopped unlocking his car. Leave my family out of this. I am, I said. I'm trying to keep her out of it. Because in 3 years she'll be in high school. And if the administration is still protecting teachers over students, she's not safe. Neither is anyone else. He stared at me, the conflict playing out on his face. Callahan kept a file, he whispered. What? A CY file. Cover your ass. She kept hard copies of everything she resolved internally, just in case she ever needed leverage against the board or the teachers. She didn't trust anyone. Where is it? She took it when she retired. But she made digital copies on the backup server. In a folder labeled Curriculum Archives 2018 to 2022. Password is her dog's name, Buster. I felt a chill. Why are you telling me this? Because, he said, opening his car door. I saw the look on your face when you demanded that phone back. And I realized I would have done the same thing. We subpoenaed the server records. The folder was there. It was a graveyard of complaints. Not just Brennan. 2 other teachers. A coach. Complaints of bullying ignored. Safety violations overlooked. It was a manifesto of negligence. When the story broke, it wasn't just a local scandal. It was national news. The superintendent resigned within 24 hours. The entire school board was recalled. Mrs. Callahan was indicted for failure to report and obstruction of justice. She lost her pension. She lost her reputation. The last time I saw her was on the news, shielding her face with a purse as she walked into the courthouse. 2 years later, I sat in the bleachers of the high school gymnasium. It was graduation day. The ceremony was different this year. The new principal, a woman named Dr. Ayres, who had been brought in from out of state to clean house, gave a speech about integrity and transparency. When Olivia's name was called, the applause was loud. She walked across the stage, head held high. She wasn't the same girl she was before the phone was taken. She was tougher, a little more guarded, but she was whole. She had written her college entrance essay on the experience. She wanted to study pre-law. After the ceremony, we stood on the front lawn taking pictures. You know, Olivia said, adjusting her cap. I was thinking about that day in the office. Yeah. When you told Callahan you'd call the cops yourself. You looked crazy. I laughed. I felt crazy. I was so scared, she admitted. I thought you were ruining my life. But she looked over at the school building, a place that had been a prison and was now just a building. You didn't ruin it. You saved it. She hugged me. It was a fierce hug, strong and real. Thanks, Mom. Anytime, kid. I looked at her phone, tucked into the pocket of her graduation gown. It buzzed. She pulled it out, glanced at it, and smiled. Who is it? I asked, the old instinct flaring up just for a second. Just Sarah, she said. Asking if we're going to the party. Have fun, I said. Keep your location on. I know the policy, she grinned. As she walked away to join her friends, I took a deep breath. The air smelled like summer and freshly cut grass. The police cars were gone. The lawyers were paid. The monsters were locked away. I reached into my purse, pulled out my own phone and turned it off. For the first time in 2 years, everything was quiet. And it was a good silence.